Okay, thanks, Chris. In the latest in the work to contain the coronavirus, Governor John Bel Edwards just unveiled new details on the contact tracing program that's already getting underway here. And Devin Bartolotta is joining us now, also in the studio, with some of those specifics. Devin?
Well, Katie, Louisiana has been contact tracing throughout the pandemic in some lesser infected areas, but has not until now been ready to do it on a large scale. It involves reaching out to the people who came into close contact with new COVID-19 patients. Here's who falls under that close contact umbrella: household members, partners, those who have provided care, or those who have been closer than 6 feet for more than 15 minutes. And here's the process. A COVID-19 patient would be asked to provide a list of all of those people, and those contacts would receive a call saying they were close to someone who is sick. They'd be asked to get tested for the virus and take steps to either quarantine or isolate.
But I want the public to be assured that information is held in privacy. And as we then reach out to contact those individuals and ask them to isolate, we're not revealing that person's name. We're not revealing any details of the individual that they came into contact with. Instead, you would get a call and inform you, you may have been exposed per our records to COVID-19.
As Dr. Bayou was saying there, they're not revealing any details of individuals who came in contact with those people. Instead, you just get a phone call and be informed that you had been exposed according to their records with COVID-19. Now, Louisiana signed contracts with 2 technology companies who are working on contact tracing right now in Massachusetts. There are already about 70 contact tracers employed in Louisiana, but the governor hopes to have hundreds. Call centers should be up and running in about a week. Katie.
All right, Devin, thanks so much. One contact tracing suggestion from New Orleans Mayor LaToya Cantrell. It's drawing some criticism, and Jade Cunningham is taking a closer look at that tonight.
Business owners are waiting anxiously for when they can welcome customers again.
Our sales have dropped probably about 80% since all of this has started.
Heather Hutton owns Big Chief Vapor Products. She's one of many closely watching how leaders are discussing moving forward. But a recent idea from Mayor LaToya Cantrell regarding contact tracing and keeping a log of every customer isn't sitting well.
I'm nervous that we are going to end up losing a lot of business because people aren't going to want to give their information out, and that's their right. They shouldn't have to give their information out to purchase products.
Details are still few about the city's intent to do something like that, but when it comes to contact tracing in general, Tulane Assistant Professor of Epidemiology Lena Moses says it's critical.
What we've seen in many, many countries that have been able to not just flatten this curve, but actually start to get it on the decline is that they've rolled out contact tracing and it's helped.
The process allows health officials to get ahead of the virus, but Moses cautions it must be done thoughtfully.
I think we have to embrace it, but the things that we need to really carefully consider is if we're getting information from businesses, how is this going to affect the businesses? No one wants Big Brother. This is the U.S. And so we're going to have to face as a society some really tough decisions where we balance personal privacy and public good.
And as leaders work to figure that balance out, business owners like Hutton are doing the same. Hopeful a solution that everyone can get on board with will be found.
We will definitely follow protocol, whatever that protocol is, that does not violate anybody's rights.
Jade Cunningham, Eyewitness News.
South Korea, it was one country that utilized contact tracing through things like closed-circuit television and credit cards. Others are also using mobile apps for it.